You remember when a TV lasted? A real Zenith or Magnavox that sat in your living room for 20 years and just worked. My mother had one like that. When it finally died, we were almost shocked. We'd stopped thinking of it as something that could break. Now you're looking at televisions again. $400, $2,500, and the honest question is simple. Why spend 5 times more for something that shows you the same picture? That's not unreasonable. It's exactly why we're here. We took a TCL 55-inch 4 Series, priced at $400, and put it next to an LG G3 OLED 65-inch at $2,500. We brought in people who didn't know which was which, showed them the exact same content, and asked which one looked better. What happened surprised us. Before we break it down, make sure to hit that subscribe button, drop a like if you enjoy honest tech tests, and let me know in the comments which TV you think will win. You can find all product links in the description below. Now, let's walk through what really happened. The setup. 2 very different TVs. Let me give you a sense of what we're working with here, because the differences aren't just about price. They're about engineering, philosophy, and who these televisions were designed for. The TCL 4 Series. If you've walked through Best Buy or Costco in the past couple of years, you've probably seen this TV. It's unpretentious. 55 inches of 4K resolution, HDR support, a straightforward remote, basic smart TV features. The build quality is solid enough. No flimsy plastic, no sense that it's going to fall apart. But it's made for value. The panel is a standard LED backlit LCD. It doesn't have fancy local dimming zones, which means the brightness of different parts of the screen can't adjust independently. The color accuracy right out of the box is bright and punchy, designed to catch your eye on a display floor. The refresh rate is standard. Nothing cutting edge, nothing stripped down. It's a no-frills television that does the job. The LG G3 OLED. This is in a completely different universe, 65 inches. OLED technology means every single pixel produces its own light and its own color. No backlight needed. That's the whole philosophy behind OLED. When you want black, the pixel turns completely off. True black. No glow, no backlight bleed. The color accuracy is cinema grade, calibrated to reference standards right out of the factory. The refresh rate is exceptional. The viewing angles mean you can watch from almost any position in a room and still see perfect color and contrast. The peak brightness in HDR mode is impressive. The motion handling is silky smooth. This is a television built for someone who cares deeply about image quality. Someone willing to pay premium money for an experience that goes beyond just watching TV. So we've got 2 very different philosophies, 2 very different engineering approaches, and a 5-to-1 price difference. The natural assumption is that the OLED should win decisively. That's what the logic suggests. But logic sometimes doesn't match up with how we actually watch television in our homes. The blind test setup. Here's how we set this up. We took both televisions. We calibrated them both to their most accurate out-of-the-box settings. For the TCL, that meant switching it from its default vivid mode to a more balanced mode. For the LG, we used its filmmaker mode, which is what LG calibrates their sets to. We then used identical HDMI cables, identical video content, and we placed both televisions in the same viewing environment. Now, this matters because this isn't a laboratory. We didn't use a dark room with blackout curtains. We used a living room that looked like, well, a living room. There were windows. There was ambient light. There was realistic viewing distance, about 8 to 9 feet away, which is typical for how most people actually sit when they watch TV. We had normal daylight conditions during the day, dimmed evening conditions in the evening, and we tested at different times. The content we used was a mix. We showed movie scenes because that's how people often evaluate television in stores. We showed sports because many of you watch sports, and sports reveal a lot about how a TV handles motion and color. We showed nature documentaries because those stress test the entire range of colors and blacks. We showed bright YouTube demo reels because, let's be honest, that's what catches people's eyes when they're shopping. And here's the key part. We didn't tell people which was which. We gave them labels, TVA and TVB. That's it. Then we asked them to watch for 5 minutes on each one and tell us which looked better. We brought in 12 people, mix of ages, not all of them tech enthusiasts. Some were people who hadn't thought about their TV in years. Some were people who'd been researching this stuff online. Some were complete novices. And they all saw something interesting. The results. What people actually preferred. Here's what happened. When we showed bright content, sports clips, bright movie scenes, YouTube demo videos with high brightness imagery, 8 out of 12 people preferred TVA. That was the TCL. They used words like brighter, punchier, more vibrant. It just looks better. When we revealed that TVA was the $400 television, some people actually laughed. They didn't believe us at first, but then we showed dark content. We showed a scene from Blade Runner, a movie with a lot of blacks and shadows. We showed nighttime scenes. We showed content where the strength of OLED, true perfect blacks, actually matters. And suddenly, people's preferences shifted. For that content, 6 out of 12 preferred the LG. They noticed the depth, the way dark scenes felt more immersive, the absence of that backlight glow you sometimes get with LED televisions. But here's what's important. 4 out of 12 people still preferred the TCL even on dark content. They said it looked livelier. The blacks weren't as important to them as the overall brightness and energy of the picture. This isn't a judgment call. This is reality. It means that for a significant portion of people in a typical living room environment with mixed lighting, the difference between a $400 TV and a $2,500 TV isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it's not obvious which one is better, even when you're looking directly at them. Why? Well, let's talk about that. The technical breakdown. Why this happens. The brightness issue is the first thing to understand. A budget LED TV, especially something like the TCL, is designed to be bright, really bright. In some cases, these TVs can push 2,000 to 2,500 nits of brightness in peak HDR mode. That's actually quite impressive. An entry-level OLED, by contrast, might only hit 1,200 to 1,500 nits in its brightest mode. Why? Because OLED doesn't need brightness. OLED achieves contrast through darkness, not through brightness. In a dark room, where you're watching in the evening with the lights off, that trade-off makes sense. You want deep blacks and the ability to display bright highlights without crushing the details. But in a typical living room, especially during the day or in the evening with normal lighting, brightness matters more than perfect blacks. You're competing with ambient light. If your TV isn't bright enough to overcome that ambient light, the image looks washed out. That's why people keep gravitating toward the brighter TV. It's not an illusion, it's physics. And it's why store displays always seem brighter and more impressive than your TV at home. Because store displays are intentionally turned way up in brightness to cut through the bright store lighting. The second factor is color saturation. Budget TVs often come calibrated with a slight oversaturation. Not enough to look outright wrong, but enough to make colors feel more energetic. Reds are a touch redder, blues are a touch bluer. This isn't accurate to reference standards, but it's engaging. It catches your eye. Most people find it more fun to watch than a color-accurate image, especially if you're watching mixed content like news, streaming shows, or sports. The premium OLED is more accurate, but accuracy is more important to cinematographers and filmmakers than it is to casual viewers. The third factor is panel technology. An OLED pixel turning completely off to produce black is technically superior to an LED panel with a backlight. There's no debate about that. But that superiority only becomes obvious in specific conditions. In a dark room, watching dark content, where you're focusing on contrast and depth. In a bright living room, watching bright content, that theoretical superiority becomes abstract. It doesn't translate into an obvious visual advantage that most people notice in 5 or 10 minutes of viewing. The fourth factor is viewing angle. OLED has perfect viewing angles. LED has narrower viewing angles. If you're sitting off to the side of the TV, the LED's colors will shift and the contrast will collapse. But if you're sitting in a typical viewing position, this probably doesn't matter to you on a day-to-day basis. And finally, there's the motion handling and processing. Both of these TVs handle motion well, but they handle it differently. The TCL processes motion through frame interpolation and smoothing, which some people find makes sports look too smooth, almost soap opera-like. The OLED's motion handling is more natural because the pixel response time is nearly instantaneous. But many people actually prefer the smoother motion of the LED. It's a preference thing, not a right or wrong thing. Understanding what better really means. This is where I want to pause and talk about something important. When we ask which TV is better, we're asking the wrong question. The real question is, which TV is better for what you're going to do with it? And those are two very different things. If you're someone who watches movies late at night in a dark room, and you're interested in preserving shadow detail and achieving cinema-like contrast, the OLED is going to be better. The investment makes sense. You'll notice the difference every time you watch something. If you're someone who watches TV during the day or in a living room with windows and ambient light, and you watch a mix of content, news, sports, streaming shows, YouTube videos, the TCL might actually serve you better. Not because it's superior, but because brightness and color pop matter more in your specific situation than perfect blacks do. You might save $2,000 and watch television that you're actually happier with based on your real-world usage. That's not controversy, that's just how television works. Different technologies have different strengths. Strength in one area means trade-offs in another. There's no such thing as a perfect television. There's only the right television for your needs and your living room. Why this matters? The retail and manufacturing side. Now, the reason this blind test is interesting isn't just because two TVs have different image characteristics. It's because it reveals something about how retail works. When you walk into a big box store and you see a TV on display, you're not seeing that TV in a realistic environment. You're seeing it in a bright fluorescent warehouse with carefully tuned demo content running in a loop. The brightness has been cranked up. The color has been cranked up. The demo videos are specifically designed to make the TV look as good as possible. In that environment, a $400 TV looks much closer to a $2,500 TV than it actually does in your home. That's why people often feel disappointed after they bring home a TV they loved in the store. It's not that the TV changed, it's that the viewing environment changed. And the bright, punchy, saturated image that looked amazing in the store sometimes looks a little bit harsh or fatiguing in a normal living room. Retailers know this. That's part of why they display TVs the way they do. It's not deceptive, it's just how the technology works. But it's good context for why that blind test at home tells a different story than the display floor does. Here's what I want you to take away from this. The frustration you feel when you're shopping for TVs. The sense that maybe you're being taken advantage of. That the whole thing is confusing and designed to separate you from your money. That frustration is valid. The retail environment is designed to make shopping harder, not easier. Store displays are intentionally set up to make everything look better than it will in your home. That's not a conspiracy. That's just business. But it's not unsolvable. You have more power in this situation than you probably think you do. You can ask questions. You can test in realistic conditions. You can compare specifications across retailers. You can read actual reviews from real people and real testing. You can ask friends and family what they think of their TVs. And you can make a decision based on your actual needs, not on what a sales floor makes you feel like you need. This channel exists to give you the information you need to make decisions with confidence. If this video was helpful, hit the like button and let me know in the comments. If you have questions about TVs or anything else you're thinking about buying, I'd love to hear them. Share your experience and help other viewers learn from what you've discovered. Make sure to subscribe for more honest tech breakdowns, and you can find links to all the products mentioned in this video in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.